So cellular respiration is the process that converts sugar into ATP using oxygen. So basically what's happening? We have digested materials moving into the body or the organism or the cell, and those carbohydrates are being broken down into a usable form, which can then be easily stored and used. So cellular respiration makes ATP by breaking down sugars. It's an aerobic process, meaning that it requires oxygen, and the aerobic stages actually take place in the mitochondria of the cell. And this is why you studied that the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, where all the energy is produced. So when you look at this electron micrograph of a cell, you can see that there are many mitochondria present in this particular cell, and they just showed you a little blow-up graphic of one. Now glycolysis has to take place first. That's the first process. It's the first stage, if you will, of cellular respiration. It is an anaerobic process, so it does not require oxygen to be present. So it can happen even when you're tired and exercising and your muscles just really need to make some more ATP. So it takes place in the cytoplasm of your cells, not actually in the mitochondria. It splits glucose into two 3-carbon molecules. So remember, glucose is C6H12O6. So there are 6 carbon molecules in glucose. It's basically splitting the molecule in half. And then, in that process, it is able to make 2 ATP molecules. That's where that energy gets stored. So when we look at it, we can see glucose having 6 carbons breaks apart into 2 3-carbon molecules, and the additional energy adds that phosphate to ADP, making ATP. Just remember, cellular respiration is like a mirror image of photosynthesis. The Krebs cycle transfers energy to an electron transport chain. Kind of sounds just like photosynthesis already. This takes place in the mitochondrial matrix, and that breaks down the 3-carbon molecules from glycolysis. It doesn't actually break down the original glucose molecule. It does make a small amount of ATP. Not very much though, not very significant. And this is where carbon dioxide is released. So when we talk about breathing or that type of respiration, you need the oxygen, right? So you breathe in oxygen and you release carbon dioxide. This is how your body is making the carbon dioxide. In doing so, it transfers energy-carrying molecules to the final phase of respiration. So when we look at this diagram, we've got 2 3-carbon compounds from glycolysis that are moving in, okay? And the cycle here occurs in the matrix, and 6 carbon dioxide are released and a little bit of ATP, and these high energy molecules that are produced are going to move on, okay? So the electron transport chain produces a large amount of ATP. It takes place in the inner membrane. So when you look at the diagram of the mitochondrion, there is the external membrane that surrounds the actual organelle, and then on the inside there's kind of like layers and folds of another membrane on the inside, and that's to create more surface area. That inner membrane is really important because that's where the electron transport chain occurs. So that's where that energy gets transferred to. And this is where oxygen enters the process, and ATP gets produced. In the end, water gets released as a waste product. And if you think about it, when you breathe in through your nose, right? You breathe out, and when it's really cold outside, you ever sit in the back seat of the car and you're breathing on a cold day and you kind of went on the window? When you breathed out, didn't some condensation form on the window? Well, that's the water vapor that's being released when you breathe. So not only are you releasing carbon dioxide, but you're also releasing that water vapor. So over here in the electron transport chain, here's that inner membrane I was talking about. we've got molecules of oxygen that are coming in, okay, and this is where oxygen is used and why you have to have oxygen, but the electron transport chain occurs here, making more ATP and releasing those water molecules. So the equation for the overall process is 1 molecule of glucose plus 6 plus 6 oxygen yields 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. Now hopefully that looks familiar, because like I said, photosynthesis and cellular respiration are like mirror images. The reactants in photosynthesis are the same as the products of cellular respiration. So when we look at the diagram, here are the reactants of photosynthesis, water and carbon dioxide. Look at that. The products of cellular respiration, carbon dioxide and water. But what if we look at the products of photosynthesis, sugar and oxygen, and then the reactants of cellular respiration are sugar and oxygen. So you've known for a long time that plants and photosynthesis type organisms, producers, release oxygen into the atmosphere, and that enables us to breathe. And then we breathe out the carbon dioxide, and then that's what the plants use. Well, these are the two chemical processes for which that occurs.